Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show is the next installment from the incredible series by AlienTechBlog. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story, entitled I Repaired Some Alien Tech. Part 2. Let's get straight into that. I'm so fucking excited right now. Bear with me if this post doesn't have the best punctuation at certain points, but I'm on cloud 9. I thought it's been long enough since my initial post. I recovered tech from a crashed spacecraft, and so consider this an update that I promised. Okay, so let me summarize the boring shit that's happened. Well, firstly, I completed my client's joke calculator, and I'm happy to announce that he's out of my life. Secondly, the silver wiring that I ordered to fix the alien tech arrived. Oh, and thirdly, I fucking succeeded in fixing it. I'm gonna just leave out the technical details because it's repetitive to write. And so, after soldering the wires and fitting them into the cable conduit and reattaching them to the cable head, I sat back and admired my work. I had accomplished what nobody else has. Well, not to my knowledge, at least. My adrenaline was through the roof, and the more I looked at the cable, the more pride I felt. I, a human, just repaired an extraterrestrial piece of hardware. Even though I was ecstatic about the new fixed cable, I still felt like I was forgetting something. When I picked up the white circuit board, I realized that I only fixed what was likely the visual output for the screen. Yes, I was a little annoyed, and yes, I cried a little, but that didn't change what I had done. Still, invigorated with a major sense of accomplishment, I began to analyze the circuit board again. Remember that mysterious switch in the middle of the board? Relative to its position, there was another board-to-cable connector on the bottom of the board. Connected to it, there was a similar cable. It was thicker than the visual output cable, and the plastic coating was white. When I first saw it, I was so sure that it would be also damaged. But no. I nearly jumped through the fucking roof. The white cable was in pristine condition. I had a feeling that it had to be the power supply, and so I looked down at the other end of the cord, finding that the plug was, well, not even close to compatible with any power supply in my house. It wasn't the usual two-prong design that you'd used to seeing with cord plugs. It was so strange. The plug was a circular, solid block of metal. I don't know why this alien race loves circles and spheres so much, but who am I to question superior design? I stared at the plug, accepting defeat, and nearly just throwing in the towel. But then, I had an idea. If these aliens favor superconductive metal, as shown in their choice of silver wiring, then the plug must also be very conductive, right? I had to see if I could find a way to power the screen's circuit board. I knew I'd need some raw electrical power. A power source that would allow me to run a current directly into the plug's metal surface. I didn't need a custom-made outlet. Well, at least not yet. Anyway, I had my sights set on finding a proper power supply. As I paced my room, pondering what to do next, I heard a knock at my door. Due to my last interaction with a shady cop on my door, I kinda recoiled at a knocking. Just a minute, I shouted, running my fingers through my greasy, unkempt hair. My fear was high, causing my legs to shake, my heart to race, and my face to drip sweat. I had a bad feeling about this unexpected visitor. Did the government somehow catch wind of my stolen alien tech? Were the cops back to put a bullet in my brain? I could see the headlines rushing through my mind. Hermit programmer, victim of random home invasion. They were going to kill me, take the technology and make sure that nobody knew the truth of my passing. I debated with myself on whether I should answer the door or sneak out the back and hope that nobody sees. I had it all planned out. I'd take some bottled water, open my back door and just bolt into the nearby woods. I almost went through with my plan until I heard a familiar voice. "Come on, man. You're still alive in there?" A male voice yelled. I had the bottle of water in my hand, ready to shoot through the back and into the thick brush, but I knew that voice. Hesitantly, I approached my front door. I peeked through the peephole, and to my surprise, it was an old friend of mine. To keep both of our identities anonymous, we'll call my friend Greg, and we'll call me John. Relieved, I opened the door, breathing easy and giving Greg a smile. "John, how the hell have you been, man?" Greg asked. "I've been here. You?" I replied, tapping my foot impatiently. "I've been making moves, bruh. Selling to the junkies and staying strapped. You know what's good." I guess I should explain Greg's, hood-like lifestyle. You see, I used to live in what you'd call a ghetto. Greg was always selling pot and shrooms to the party kids, but selling to junkies? That was unexpected. "Junkies? Are you alright?" I inquired, gesturing for him to come inside the house. "Better than ever, homie. You know how much paper you make off those fools? It's ridiculous." "I'm sure, Greg, but don't you think that's kind of fucked up?" "What do you mean by that?" "Well, I mean that if you're selling to junkies, then you must be slinging some bad shit." And Greg had a pretty irked expression on his face. He almost looked like he'd heard that lecture before, and he was sick of it. "Look, man, I gotta get out of hood-ass place. Look at you, John. You out here doing computer shit, living in a nice-ass house, and you got nobody trying to run up on you. I gotta sell that smack, man. I gotta make that money and get the fuck out." I sympathized with Greg's sentiment. I mean, the only reason I got out of the ghetto was because I pursued my passion. You know how hard it is to code when you can hear a drive-by happening 4 blocks away? Not a very peaceful, comfortable environment to be working in. I get that, Greg, but listen, you're not a bad guy. You don't have to sling that shit to get out of the shithole. You said it yourself. I'm doing well for myself, and I got out doing some nerdy computer shit. Why don't you do what you're passionate about and then work your way up to making some clean, legal money? Greg paused, looking down at the floor and thinking about what I had said. "Hey man, can we sit on the couch? I gotta open up about some personal shit," Greg asked with a sad, desperate eyes. I obliged, walking him to the couch. However, we couldn't take a load off and rest there because, like an idiot, I left the alien hardware in a bin on the couch. "Oh, sorry. I guess I left my spare PC parts out. I'll move them." Greg laughed, holding me back with one arm as he reached into the bin. "The fuck is this?" Greg said as he held up the smooth chrome ball. "This shit's heavy, John. What's it made of?" With haste, I swiped the ball from his hand, making the atmosphere in the room very awkward. I don't know how this got in there, but this is a family heirloom. It's very important to me," I explained, lying to him as if my life depended upon it. Sorry, John. Just fucking miss it. Brings me back to the good old days, you know?" With a concerned face, I sat Greg down, taking a seat next to him as I listened to his words. "Things have been pretty shit back at home. My ride got impounded, my girl was fucking some punk, and my dad got beat by some dudes I ripped off. You're ripping people off now? I retorted, a tone of sarcasm in my voice. Not like all the time, bro. I couldn't get all the coke I needed from my supplier, so I cut the brick with some flour and sold that shit. Haha, so why'd they beat up your dad? Why not kick your teeth in? Greg chuckled, looking as if he needed a good laugh. I wasn't home. Guess they just beat the fuck out of my dad to send me a message. If I ever see those bitch-made motherfuckers, I'll pop them on sight. With that, Greg lifted up his shirt, retrieving a pistol from his waistband. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Put that shit away, Greg! I exclaimed, leaning back in my seat as he waved the gun around. Cool it, man. I ain't some dopey-ass fool. I know my gun's safety, Greg replied, tucking a pistol back into his waistband. I would assume that you have to be an expert in gun safety, considering the fact that it's always pointed at your dick. And Greg let out a jovial, hearty laugh, clinging onto my shoulder as his face turned red. That's the shit I missed. You're a goofy motherfucker, John. God, I haven't laughed like that hard in a long time. Thanks, but none of that answered my question. Why don't you just chase your passion and then make money off it? An awkward silence washed over the two of us, only breaking up for a long sigh from Greg. That's the thing, man. I don't know what my passion is. I stay on the grind, trying to make enough money to get out of that fucking place. But after that, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I nodded, thinking of something to say that would make him feel better. Well, you like selling things and you're apparently good at it, so why not pursue that? And no, I'm not talking about drugs. Greg snickered, shrugging as he threw his hands up. You think I like selling? Shit, man. If I could make as much money flipping burgers as I do selling, then I'd be doing that. Being the antisocial, borderline, misanthropic person that I am, I was at a loss of what to say to him. I struggled to say anything of use to Greg, but since he's a chatty kind of guy, he carried a conversation for me. Look, bro, I appreciate the hell out of talking to you, but man, I got some business to get on top of. I was just looking for a real homie to catch up with, because honestly, ain't no real friends back home. And with that, Greg stood up, gave me one of those handshake/hugs, and then left. As I watched the only friend I had seen in months drive off, I felt an emptiness grow inside of me. It's been way too long since I'd seen him, and really, that goes for anyone else in my life. However, I couldn't let that get in the way of my work. As much as my isolation ate away at me, it also gave me the time and privacy I needed to work on the alien technology. After Greg's car drove over the horizon, I knew I had to immediately begin working again. It wasn't a choice for me. I had to know what that small, cracked screen would show me. Fumbling with the cord, I shut my blinds, making sure that absolutely no prying eyes could see me. Sure, I practically live in the middle of nowhere, but the thought that someone could be watching made my skin crawl. Once again, I took a good, long look at the circular, solid piece of metal at the end of the plug. I knew I needed raw power, but finding a source wasn't going to be easy. I thought of many ways to obtain such a source, but none of them seemed to be a sound idea. I thought of stripping an outlet, but I had never done that before, and I didn't feel like killing myself with a 20 amp current. I thought of taking apart my microwave, using something inside to apply a direct current to the plug, but once again, I didn't want to risk getting fried. Nothing I thought of was going to be safe to attempt, and at the time, I wish I'd tinkered with more hardware than software. And just when all hope seemed lost, I had a revelation. I was looking in unfamiliar, untouched territory, so why not search for solutions in my own ballpark? I had to be more like Greg. I had to stick with what I know. And that's how I got the cable fixed, so why not keep running with it? I wasn't going to let this weird-looking, confusing alien tech intimidate me. Think more like Greg, I muttered, scratching my head as I grasped at straws for a solution. And that right there is when I had my aha moment. Flashes of watching my old friend drive off into the distance began to fill my head, giving me one of the brightest ideas that I'd had in a while. If I wanted a decent, stable, safer source of power supply, then I needed to look no further than my front lawn. Look, I'm not a car guy, but I had to know how to jump one after the countless times that the battery failed. Those high school days were rough, and my parents couldn't afford to buy me a new car, so they settled for an old family hand-me-down. I'm a fucking genius, I said under my breath, abruptly making a beeline for my front door. And with a small screen in my hand, the exposed circuit board's power cable dangling, I popped the trunk of my car. Even though I had a better, more reliable vehicle, I was glad that I was paranoid enough to keep my old jumper cables. My plan was simple. Hook the oddly structured plug to a jumper cable, attach the other end to a positive terminal on the battery, and watch as the alien tech hopefully comes to life. Carefully, I set up the battery to the plug, hoping all would go well. I must have triple-checked that both ends of the jumper clamps were properly secured. Can you blame me for being more mindful than usual? You try repairing an otherworldly piece of hardware and then tell me how easy or not stressful it was. And taking a deep breath, I fished the car keys out of my pocket. I don't know why, but I decided to start the car on the count of 3. Maybe I was giving my luck enough time to soak into the scene, but I felt compelled to take my time. 1, 2, 3. And with that, I heard my car engine rev up, followed by a light and fine purring. You know, I really didn't take into account that I could have destroyed the technology with an overload of power, but I didn't. In shock, I stared at the screen. I couldn't believe my eyes. The screen was on. You know when you turn on your TV and there's no picture coming through, but you can tell it's on because of the light. Faded, bluish color. Well, that's what I was seeing. At first I thought maybe, just maybe, I wasn't going to get much other than a slightly brighter display. However, when I saw a bizarre foreign symbol pop up on screen, I was astounded. I nearly fell to my knees, my vision clouded with tears. I was gibbering incoherently, stumbling over to the powered screen. After my legs finally gave out from the overwhelming emotion, I saw the alien symbol disappear, causing my heart to drop straight into my stomach. At that point, I thought I completely fried the circuit board. I was simply looking into the black screen, noticing just how disheveled I appeared in the reflective glass. I wanted to weep, but this time not out of joy or astonishment. I wanted to cry, because I believed that I had failed. In a fit of rage, I pounded my fist into the concrete of my driveway. I screamed, cried, and handed myself like a mental patient of his meds. I wanted to take that damn screen and throw it at my useless car and burn the both of them in a devastating fire. Lifting my head off the ground, wiping the tears from my face, I saw the most beautiful sight. The screen was displaying an assortment of alien text. Once again, I had reached nirvana. Laughing maniacally, I scanned the indecipherable language with frantic eyeballs. Yeah, I couldn't understand a lick of what was on the screen and what it was showing me, but that didn't matter. I fixed and successfully powered a piece of hardware that I and the majority of the human race had never seen before. Nothing, and I mean nothing, could or will ever match the elation that I felt. It was like the most intense drug, and I needed another dose. I sprung to my feet, doing a celebratory dance that must have made me look like an insane person. I was fist-pumping, kicking my feet into the air and making all sorts of inhuman ape-like noises. Unless you died, gone to heaven, came back with proof of the afterlife, and were the only person to do so, then you wouldn't and don't have the capacity to understand the amount of pure ecstasy I was in. In my hysterics, I didn't notice Greg standing right behind me. John, did I sell you some shit earlier, or what? I yelped, not expecting to see another human in person for at least another month. Greg, why are you here? I exclaimed, trying my best to play off my excitement like it never happened. Greg eyed me up and down, probably wondering why I was having a psychotic break in my driveway. I think my wallet's somewhere in your couch. Can't find it anywhere. As Greg spoke, I noticed that he was peering over my shoulder, looking at my car battery setup. John, what the fuck are you doing, man? You need a ride to the hospital? Honestly, I can't fault Greg for assuming that I had lost my absolute shit. All he was seeing was my car was running, jumper cables hooked to some screen on the ground, and to top it all off, he just saw me doing a corrupted Indian rain dance. Greg, can you keep a secret? I asked, temporary insanity impairing my judgment. Sure, my friend replied, his voice rife with concern and reluctance. Well, I'm gonna sound fucking crazy, but you gotta believe me. After that, I began to ramble about the crashed spacecraft, the dead alien I saw inside of it, and how I came to possess the hardware that I have now. The more my story dragged on, the more he seemed to distance himself from me. I think he was freaked out, maybe even scared of me, but I just kept blathering on. And then I had the idea to hook the plug up to my car battery, and guess what? It worked! I stammered, making sudden, fast hand gestures to drive my story home. Okay, but so where's that alien shit? Greg inquired, his brows furrowed in confusion and worry. Without hesitation, I took him by the arm, pulling him over to the working monitor. This is it. You see all that mumbo-jumbo? That's alien language, I yelled, unable to use my normal, sane-speaking voice. Greg crouched down, squinting his eyes as he inspected what was displayed on the screen. John, are you fucking with me? I was shocked and quite offended by that notion. I was about to rip Greg a new arsehole, but then I realized that all of this seemed like a big, stupid, nonsensical joke. Greg, you know me. When have I ever fucked with you this much? And Greg kept his eyes on the foreign text, shaking his head as if he wasn't buying my story. Homie, you're a computer nerd. If anyone's gonna fuck with me about some technological shit, it's gonna be your goofy ass. I did all sorts of mental gymnastics, hoping to come up with any way to prove my claims. Unfortunately, I couldn't figure out how to prove that any of this was real. The craft, I was taken away by the government ops. The technology was so similar to ours, and anyone could piece together some bullshit fictional language. Plus, Greg wasn't the most tech-savvy guy, so any explanation I could give him about the hardware would just fly over his head. Greg, I know I look like I've lost my mind, but you know that I'm cool. A level-headed guy, but please, just let me show you the rest of the stuff I got. And begrudgingly, Greg stepped inside the house with me. He made himself at home on the couch, watching me carry the monitor through the doorway. Yo, thought you said the car battery was powering that thing, Greg said, pointing to the monitor in my hands. I scoffed, believing he was trying to mess with me. As I turned the monitor around, I totally thought that Greg was trying to prank me, seeing if I dropped a non-existent act. But to my surprise, the screen was still on. The alien text was still being displayed and faint whirring sound was still present, and I couldn't figure out why. Listening closely to the whirring, I traced its origins to the exposed circuit board on the back. Interestingly enough, there was a tiny green LED light on the bottom of the board. I didn't notice the light before, but I did notice the thin, square, black card that the light inhabited. Originally, I thought nothing of the card, simply believing that it was a component that I couldn't understand. Therefore, I didn't include it in my initial post. However, When I saw that card was attached to the power connector, I knew what it was. That little, insignificant black card was a rechargeable battery. "What is it?" Greg asked, sounding more unsure that I'm pranking him. "Oh, nothing. Not like you'd fucking believe it anyway," I replied, setting the monitor on the coffee table. Greg went silent, opting to sit back and twiddle his thumbs. "You know what? Remember that heavy, chrome ball you found?" I said, rummaging through my bin of alien tech. "I lied. It's not a family heirloom. I don't know what the fuck it is." I tossed the ball to Greg, promptly returning to rummaging for more hardware. "Yeah, man. It's heavy and smooth as fuck, but that don't mean it's from outer space," Greg asserted, fiddling with the chrome sphere. Annoyed, I snapped at my friend. "Greg, just fucking listen. You don't get how big this is, do you? You can't believe me, even though I have evidence right here. But I'm supposed to believe that you're actually trying to get out of the ghetto? You have nothing to show for it." Greg's face dropped in a serious, angry, contemplative expression. "What, Greg? You're gonna try and fight me? You just have trouble accepting the truth, don't you?" As soon as those words left my mouth, my friend hurled the chrome ball right at me. I recalled anticipating a broken, bloody nose, but then nothing. I thought he'd miss me, and so I opened my eyes, expecting to see him charging at me, but no. Greg was still sitting on the couch, slack-jawed, looking like he was hypnotized. My brain raced to connect the dots of the situation, but then my eyes were flooded with unwanted sunlight. Blinded, I took a step back, only to see that the chrome surface of the ball was reflecting the light into my eyes. It took me a moment, but when I noticed it, my head nearly exploded. The ball, it was floating, but it wasn't drifting aimlessly. It was seemingly stuck in a single frame of time. In disbelief, I waved my hands around the orb, thinking that somehow I was seeing things all wrong. "John!" Greg choked out, sounding like a little girl that just spotted a big hairy spider. I continued to swing my arms around that levitating ball, eventually grabbing my head as I stared in pure awe. Do you believe me now?" I stammered, still frozen in shock. And Greg, he didn't say a word. He simply nodded his head, captivated by the impossibility of what he was seeing. Hesitantly, I raised my arm, reaching out for the gravity-defying object. As my hand drew closer to the orb, I began to feel this, I don't know, resistance? It was like trying to touch two magnets together, but right as we were about to grab the ball, it moved away. It was incredible. The sphere moved, but only in the complete opposite direction of my hand, and without any kind of wobbliness. It was almost like it was on a table, and it was rolling in a straight line, but it wasn't rolling at all. "John, fuck," Greg whispered, watching the orb move with bated breath. And just when I thought I had it, the orb fell to the floor with a thud. This startled Greg and I, causing us to jump and scatter away from the grounded sphere. In silence, we stared at the chrome ball, waiting for it to blow up or something. "Greg, you want to go get it?" I asked, still breathing heavily from the fear and confusion. "Fuck you, man. You get the fucking thing," Greg yelled, his voice cracking as he stood behind me. Reluctantly, I bent down, reaching out my quivering, clammy hand. Like taking off a band-aid, I just grabbed the chrome sphere without thinking, and slowly, standing upright, I treated the ball as if it was an explosive. My mind raced as I held the thing, because if it could randomly start floating whenever it wanted, then who knows what else it could do. Yet again, sunlight reflected off the surface of the orb, and with that, my fingers were instantly pushed apart. Greg and I scattered once more, but this time I noticed a pattern. As I stared at the levitating object, my fear began to dissipate. I stepped closer to the chrome globe, observing its behavior. Wary, I stuck out my arm, making a crane-like motion towards the sphere. I felt the resistance again, and, like last time, the sphere began to move in the opposite direction. When it floated out of view of the window, the sphere dropped to the floor, making something click in my brain. I looked up at the blinds, taking note of the sunlight shining through, and then back down at the chrome ball. At that point, I gained somewhat of an understanding of what may have been happening. Solar power, I mumbled, picking the ball back up. What? Greg choked out, still keeping his distance. This thing, it's solar powered. Watch. I held the ball up to the sunlight shining through the blinds, successfully suspending it in the air again. See, Greg? Nothing to be scared of. My friend stepped up to the floating orb, still unsure of the safety. This is amazing, Greg. I can't fucking believe this, I chuckled, playing with a levitating chrome ball. Dude, this shit's going on YouTube, Greg said, his phone out in front of him. Almost instinctively, I slapped the phone out of his hands. Greg, you said that you wouldn't tell anyone, I barked, exasperated, worried about the wrong people finding out. Stuttering, my friend tried to make a case for himself, promising that he'd post under an alt account. Apparently, Greg doesn't think that the government operatives could track us down, all because he created a different account on social media. After lecturing my dumbass friend on how internet anonymity works, I put the sphere back in the bin and then took a breather in my office chair. You know, I was really trying to chill out after that whole thing, but Greg was pacing the room non-stop. He kept murmuring to himself, giving me some creepy, uneasy vibes. John? Greg shot out abruptly, turning his head to me as he chewed his nails. Yeah, I replied, leaning back in my chair and letting the ceiling fan dry the sweat off my face. You think this shit could make us big money? I threw my hands in the air, shaking my head with a dumbfounded expression. Dude, we're not telling anyone about this. How many times I gotta tell you that? And Greg sighed, looking like a child on the verge of a tantrum. John, man, ain't no fucking black ops gonna roll up and kidnap us. I giggled, rubbing my forehead due to the headache he was giving me. You're the most dense motherfucker that I've ever met. I watched the military literally airlift that fucking spaceship out of the woods. They used a tarp to cover it up, Greg. A tarp? You don't think that they want this kind of shit hidden? And both of us would go missing. And that's why we're not telling a soul about this. And Greg, he just kept at it. He devised the ridiculous schemes to sell the alien tech anonymously. Begged me for just one circuit board. And overall, he just didn't get it. Greg, just get the fuck out, will you? My friend shrugged, turning his back to me as he stormed off. Thanks, John. You really got your priorities straight. Well, my fuckface of a body slammed the door, knocking one of my paintings off the wall. I don't mind too much. Those flowery, generic paintings of rivers and lakes are a dime a dozen. Plus, now that I had a peace and quiet, I could work on a more tangible piece of hardware. The monitor. Honestly, calling it a monitor now is a misnomer. Knowing that it's basically an extraterrestrial computer, I should probably refer to it as such. And the time I had with that alien computer opened my eyes to a few things. And firstly, there's a power button on the bottom right of the frame. And secondly, there's a keyboard. On the bottom of the frame, right in the center, there's a barely noticeable slit. Out of curiosity, the very thing that got me to this point, I went to go touch it, only to have an entire keyboard unfold before my very eyes. Obviously the keys weren't labelled with anything recognizable, but on the left there were 4 arrow keys, up, down, left, right arrow keys to be exact. and that was just about the only normal thing about the keyboard, and I fully intended to see what I could do with it in terms of interacting with the user interface. I booted up the computer, sat through the weird, multi-angled loading symbol, and watched as the alien text engulfed the screen. I sipped my coffee, analysing every little facet of the alien operating system. In a neat, single-filled line, the white text descended the screen. Hovering next to the first line of text, there was a small, red circle. Again, these aliens have an infatuation with fucking circles. Using the arrow keys, I made the circle move to the second line of text below. It seemed like a menu. It acted like a menu, but I didn't know how to click things. I inspected the keyboard again, scanning my eyes across the unfamiliar, baffling symbols. On the right, there was a key with yet another circle. I assumed that it would allow me to select whichever option the cursor hovered next to, and I was right. I selected the first one, naturally, and it brought me to a new screen. The screen displayed, wait for it, another circle. Next to the big white circle, there were more odd symbols. The symbols were angular and, strangely enough, almost crop circle looking. The symbols got less complex as they descended next to a thin, vertical line. The symbol at the very bottom was a simple dot, while the symbol at the top was 5 angled lines, complete with a dot in the middle. I had a hunch, but I wasn't too sure about it, not until I counted all of the symbols. Well, there were 50 of these strange, hieroglyph-like symbols, and upon further examination, each line seemed to match the number that symbol was. The lines didn't follow the rules upon reaching 10, however, so, I don't know. I think they're numbers. Anyway, I don't know what that screen was supposed to be for, and so your guess is as good as mine. The cursor was nowhere to be seen, and so I just pressed the circle key again and was taken out of the mysterious screen, back at the main menu. I then selected the second line of text. This screen, however, was chock full of the same type of symbols from the main menu, but this time coupled with those numeral characters. I didn't want to fuck with it, but I didn't know how to exit the screen. The cursor was hovering next to an input box, and I wasn't about to type random shit into it, and so I just carefully navigated around with the arrow keys. Eventually I found the exit by clicking on 2 symbols, sitting to the left of the screen and bordered with a white box. The next screen was far more unique than the last 2, although, just like the others, I have little to no idea what it was about. I clicked the third line of text, and then was immediately greeted with a white loading bar. Characters were appearing at rapid pace below the bar, and then it stopped loading midway. It took me to a screen with more alien text, almost like it was telling me that something failed to do something. Descriptive? I know. The fourth screen was, well, very interesting. There was a big square plane. On that plane, there were so many little circles. God, I'm starting to love circles now. Anyway, I used the cursor to select the square plane, and with that, I could use the arrow keys to rotate the field or select one of the many circles. When I selected one, a window would open, showing me a bunch of text that I couldn't understand. To me, it looked like a map of some region in space, and the circles were likely planets, stars, or maybe entire systems. However, the most interesting or unnerving thing about the map was this. There were also tiny blue triangles, and these triangles were moving at different speeds. Upon selecting one of them, another window popped up, and guess what? I still couldn't understand it. Although in that window there were numerals on the very bottom and they were shifting. Was it keeping tabs on the speed of those objects? I believe so. The blue triangles were mostly orbiting and or emerging from blue circles, save for a few stragglers. As I selected another blue triangle, I noticed something that I hadn't with the previous window, an option button. Now, I was hesitant to click it, but Damn, was I high on curiosity? I mean, I was peering into an unseen, uncontacted world of potential, and who knows how long this tech will last. What if the government really did catch wind of what I was doing? What if I never get another chance to see every feature of this alien program? I had to do it. Letting out an exasperated grunt, I was about to click the option box, but something felt wrong about it. My paranoia often meddles with my intuition, and so whether it was the right choice to do it or not, I don't know. Well, that brings us to now. As I write this, the computer is powered off, sitting in the bin. I'm tired. Very, very tired. But I needed to bring you guys up to date, as you wanted. You know what? How about some interaction? I want you, the one reading this, to give me some advice. I want to know whether or not I should click that mysterious, kinda intimidating option next time. Sure, I don't think it's a good idea, but maybe you guys can persuade me. I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, I'd likely do it on my own at some point. So just give me some of your thoughts on it. Good night, Reddit. Hope you stay tuned for my next post. Wow, 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 wow. Absolutely awesome sci-fi horror there. Wonderfully coming along with a great pace and a totally fresh concept. Of course, once again, a big thank you to the author, AlienTechBlog, over on Reddit. Make sure you check out his incredible Reddit. I'll leave the link to that in the description box below. Smash it up, vote, and possibly a follow. I'm sure it'll be worth your time and you can lose yourself for a good hour or two reading through his stories. Of course, as ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help with the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. Of course, if you're an aspiring writer or would just like to have a crack at things, why not get in touch with myself at the usual email as on screen, which is dmtforestofear@gmail.com. Also, if you guys are looking to support the show further and also gain access to early access videos and members only content, why not click the link in the description box to join up today with the DMT's Cryptid crew members only section. Got lots planned with a behind the scenes video coming along soon, featuring my pretty old face in my home built studio, and going to be doing some Q&As. As always, guys, I hope you're all well and happy, family and friends alike, and above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.